Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. I have here a very entertaining guest for sure, the King of Connecticut, the suntan Superman, Matt Granahan. Matt, welcome to Crime and Entertainment, my friend.
Hey, what's going on, brother? The pernicious purveyor of preposterous pomposity is here, man. I heard you had my buddy Larry on last night.
I did. I had Miles on last night. His episode is going to be dropping here soon. As you can see, I got his book right back here over my shoulder, The Life. Very good book. Now, you and Larry actually have done episodes together because, you know, you've got a background here in UFC and pro wrestling for our audience members that may not know who you are. And you've kind of got a little take on how the mob and the UFC kind of were together in its heyday.
Well, yeah, I've done a couple shows down at Berman Law Group, which is, I want to definitely give a plug. I host our show, TBT Podcast, the Berman Team, which is the official Berman Team podcast. We are the largest personal injury firm in South Florida, and we can try personal injury cases in all 50 states. So anybody who's been injured in an accident, hit me up, give me a call. Hit me up on Facebook is the best way to get me. You won't be able to friend me because I've reached a friend max long ago, but you can still message me on there. And I tell people go to Matthew J. Granahan, MATTHEW J GRANAHAN on my Facebook. Just DM me if you've been in an accident. We'll help you out. But yeah, so that's the Fertitta family has got a long, rich history going back to New Orleans, Louisiana, with Carlos Marcello, and they ran Galveston, Texas. When I say they ran Galveston, Texas, it's much different than you'll hear, because the thing is, these shows that started popping up, or when Corona started, that have a lot of these cooperators on. They don't really give you the true message, because they make you think that everybody is either going to end up dead or in prison, because that's their own experiences. And a lot of times these guys are lower level guys. You know, Larry's a real good friend of mine. He cooperated against the corrupt FBI agents. I always say the largest and most efficient organized criminal organization in the world is the United States government.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the Fertitta family, they really did it well. The kind of like the Scottos, or in Connecticut, I was good friends with AJ Galante and James, cleaned their money, made a fortune. They ran Galveston, Texas. They had all the most brothels per square mile, and were in Galveston, Texas. They ran the brothels. They had a big gambling casino. They had entertainers like Tony Bennett, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin performing there. They kept the riffraff out. Galveston was actually really nice city that the Fertittas and the Macios controlled. And ironically, they were drummed out by the Texas Rangers. And the Texas Rangers were very corrupt when they came in and pushed the mob out of Galveston. And then the Fertitta family, they moved on to Vegas. And the Fertitta's father is one of the characters that's portrayed in the Casino movie. I see you have De Niro's picture in the back.
Yep.
You know, he starred in that movie that was based on a true story. And the Tangiers was actually a made up name for that casino, but casinos back then were controlled. And I would urge anybody who loves to follow this genre to check out an interview that I did years ago when I had my old podcast, King's Court. I did an interview with Tony Napoli. His father was the capo of the Genovese family. Tony was a former pro boxer under the name Tony Rio, and he he ran the casinos out in Vegas, skimmed the money on with the casinos out in Vegas. But he had a lot of real power, back then. But there are a lot of examples of families that did it the right way and they cleaned their money. You have one example of a gangster or a racketeer or guys that are involved in legitimate and illegitimate businesses and clean their money. And then you have, your common street thugs. And I think with a lot of these shows, you're getting the latter because you're getting a lot of these guys that were low-level guys that were rats, that cooperated. Johnny A's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a long time. He did everything he could to avoid cooperating. He went down into Brazil, tried to get away. Larry, like I said, he was cooperating against corrupt FBI agents. But a lot of these guys are just, low-level thugs that have a distorted view of how things are in that world and in that life. And your show is great because there's so many of these shows and there's this genre, but it's really supposed to be the code of silence. You're really not supposed to be speaking about all this stuff. So it's so interesting how and they're talking about things that happened in the past, and they're mostly guys from Philly or New York, which are always the most talkative guys, always the most showy guys. But I think it gives people kind of a distorted view of the life with some of these shows.
No, I agree because, like you said, by and large, the mob was a secret society. And that started to kind of change, around the era of John Gotti. He became so flashy and loving the limelight. And I mean, I'll give John his credit. I mean, he was a gangster when he went down. He didn't say a peep. He took his time. He did it like a man. It killed him. He died in there. But at the same time, he brought a lot of heat and eyes to the mob where two predecessors before him, Carlo Gambino, would have never been caught dead on the cover of fucking Time magazine. That shit wasn't going to happen. Joey Merlino down there in Philadelphia was a flashy guy. Now, I'll give Merlino his credit. He was flashy, but he's had a 30-year run down there and allegedly still probably calling shots from behind closed doors. So there's a difference between those two. Gotti's run wasn't really that long time-wise. He just rose to the top real quick and real fast. But yeah, it was based on something that was supposedly kept quiet. You wanted to operate in the shadows. And I think that's one reason that a lot of people were drawn to this type of content and this type of lifestyle is, like we mentioned, Casino and Goodfellas. That's appealing, especially to the average 9-to-5 folk that, don't have any kind of recollection of that life. They like to live vicariously through some of these stories, I believe.
Sure. And before that, you talk about flashy. The original John Gotti was Al Capone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was so flashy as well. And, Joey Merlino, I knew the guy who was involved with him in Boca with the medical scam that he did. The Philly guys have always been really flashy and showy. I've been on some shows with George Anastasia in the past, who's really the best authority of the Philly mob. But in Connecticut, where I'm from, and Rhode Island, you don't speak about that kind of stuff. And the guys that were involved in that life, you clean their money, you'd never know it. It's really the way that it's supposed to be. Very, very low. But yeah, man, I mean, I didn't want to spend too much time talking about the mob and the Cosa Nostra stuff because I really want to talk about the Nature Boy.
Yeah, another flashy guy.
Yeah, man.
So let's get the story here kind of from the beginning, because if you've been following Nature Boy, he's recently went through another divorce from his then wife, Wendy. Now, you may or may not have had a little something to do with that. Is that right?
Well, Rick entirely blames me for his divorce. And I mean, he's Ric Flair. I mean, he shouldn't be blaming me. He's always been he's always lived the gimmick, been the styling, profiling, limousine driving, jet flying, son of a gun. And I love him for that, man. I still wish Rick nothing but the best, although he'd love to see my head on a platter. So I'd known Rick for quite a while, and I didn't know how much this got to him. I knew he was so angry at me. But a few weeks ago, I did a show in Daytona Beach with Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, who was a big star in the Booker in WCW. And in the show, I joined his Army of Darkness. And he was telling me the night before when we were out at Hooters that I almost ended his friendship with Rick because Kevin had me on his podcast. And Rick called him, swearing at him, calling him every name in the book. How could you have that son of a bitch on your podcast? He ruined my life. And I'll tell you, I'll give you the quick synopsis of this. I've known Rick for a long time. I originally met Rick years ago when I was bouncing at Docksides in Lake Murray, South Carolina. That had to be 2007. And he was married to real snotty Tiffany at the time. And she was a personal trainer at my gym, and she was a real snotty lady. And Rick was drowning his sorrows at the bar. He and Tiffany weren't getting along. And I knew Reed. He had me coach his son a little bit. His son was a good amateur wrestler. Rest in peace, Reed. Was a great young man who passed away. But I was out on Rick's boat in Lake Lanier, and I had a very sexy, she was a Lebanese Mexican combo, and she was very sexy. And I had her out there on Rick's boat at Lake Lanier back in 2000. I think it was 16. It was right when he was dating Wendy. They weren't married yet, before he started having his health problems. And he was all over on the boat. Oh, you're so exotic. You're so exotic, baby. And had some fun times with Rick out there. And she was complaining. She's just to keep this old creep away from me. I said, baby, that's Ric Flair. Come on, you know. And that's a nature boy. And so, you fast forward. Rick and I hadn't really kept in touch that much since he had his health problems, because we were out partying together there in Lake Lanier. And then with Berman Law Group, they reached out to me and they wanted Rick to host an event and come on the show, come on my podcast. So I reached out to Rick, and one of the first things he asked me, because I had sent him some saucy videos of that gal we were just talking about. First thing he asked me, he says, Matt, you got any pictures of that girl? Any videos for the Nature Boy? And I said, no, Rick, she's kind of moved on. She moved to California, but I am with this very, very sexy Gloria Diferente Venezuelan. And I had some saucy videos of, and he ate them up. He loved them. And then the beautiful Dominican that I met when I was going out here to Eric Paulson CSW to do the retrospective on my Rough and Tumble book around the holidays. And when I was flying out there and met this, oh my God, she was so incredible. I'll send you some pictures and videos of her in private. I'll even send you the video that got Rick in trouble. And I met her at the airport, and she was exchanging some sexy videos. She actually lives in Charleston. And
really?
So
that's right down the road.
Oh yeah, she is tremendous. And so Rick sent him the videos, and he loved it. He says, "Oh, you're the man." And then he calls me later that afternoon, and I was really preoccupied at the time. I didn't know what he was talking about. He says, Matt, you got to call Wendy. Tell him that video was from your other friend. It was for your other friend, right? Right, Matt? For your other friend. So I said, I kind of blew him off, because then that night he starts texting me, threatening me. You bastard, you never called Rick. Die. I want you dead. You're ruining my life. And then and as far as those women you send me videos of, they don't hold a candle to my Wendy. So obviously Wendy was looking at his phone. So that was the first thing. So I had fun with it, and I'm a personality on the Hannibal TV. So Hannibal, when he saw it, he says, "Man, we gotta tell this tale. You know, this is because the best promos, like for the Attitude Era and everything, the best promos are reality based."
Yeah.
So we did that first video, and then I was in the pool, and I was like, I'm just gonna for the hell of it, reach out to Wendy. So I started reaching out to Wendy because they had subsequently broken up. That's why it was such a story for the Hannibal. So I reached out to Wendy, and she was all about it. She says, "Oh, we got to get together for mimosas and rosemary, you know, and this and that." So then she goes and she sends my print screens of my picture and our conversations to Rick after they had split up to get him angry. And he blew a gasket on me. "I'm going to find you. I'm going to find where you are. I'm going to find where you live now. You're a dead man." So I sent that to the Hannibal. And then I started really messing with him. And I sent him the Hannibal videos, which had all these thousands of views and comments. And then I blocked him. Then I sent him another Hannibal video, got his response, and then I blocked him. Then I started going on these podcasts talking about it. And Kevin Sullivan's was one of them, went on quite a few. And then I took Reed's friend, who was training partner of Reed in amateur wrestling, in the ring.
I seen that.
Yeah, we told the story with the voice of the Carolinas, Bill Hazelwood, and I choked him out, put him in the figure four, slapped him in the figure four, taught him a lesson. And I said, "Rick, I stole your woman and I stole your hold. And if you still had it, I'd steal your gold." So, and then gave the old woo. And I also said to Rick, you know, I don't want Wendy for anything long term because she's 2 cup sizes too small, and she's 40 years too old for the king, baby. So yeah, I had have a lot of fun with it, and that's why, you know, I'm doing these. I just did another video for Hannibal because Rick is making his return to the ring.
I seen that. Wow.
And the people who know Rick, they know that I'm the one that he hates more than anyone in the world. So his return to the ring has got to be against the king. And I'll throw this out there. And I said this with Bill Hazelwood, the voice of the Carolinas, on his podcast. I said, "Look, I don't want a match from you, Rick. You know, you're 73 years old. I want to give you a chance to get your revenge." And at the Gathering, which is a big event in the Carolinas, you're already booked, Rick. You're already booked. Wendy's even going to be there. I will give you this chest, this 52-inch chest, Rick, and I will open my chest up to you, and I will allow you to give me 25 chops in front of the fans to get your revenge. So then the fans guaranteed to get what they want, your fans, Rick. So man up and do it. No, nobody wants to see the geriatric match with you and the Rock and Roll Express at some county fair or flea market in Bumfuck, Tennessee. No one wants to see that, Rick. Step up, my man.
Now, where is this you're talking about? What, the Gathering? Where is this going to be held?
So the Gathering is a huge event with all the stars from Crockett. Tully Blanchard will be there. Arn Anderson will be there. Ric Flair's going to be there. The Rock and Roll Express. What's left of the Midnight Express, you know, Bobby Eaton passed away.
Right.
They're all going to be there. They come every year. It's a big fan fest and wrestling show that Bill Hazelwood is involved with booking it, and the voice of the Carolinas, he hosts it.
And where is that located?
And the Gathering used to be an event that was held in Charlotte. But it's either Charlotte or Greensboro, right there in Ric Flair country.
Yeah, right there in Ric Flair country. Now I go to they used to go to one they had down in Winston-Salem around Thanksgiving. I think that one was WrestleCade. I've been to that one a few times, and I've seen Rick down there and Arn and a lot of those guys down there. Oh
yeah, they have WrestleCade, and then the Gathering used to be NWA Fan Fest.
Yeah.
And it was Greg Price. I did that a couple of years. I did that with Dan the Beast Severn one year and with Phil Baroni one year. And they don't do that anymore. It's called the Gathering now.
Okay.
But it's basically the same event. It's either Charlotte or Greensboro. Yeah,
So
but it's right
open
there in the heart of Flair country.
So open invitation to Ric Flair to come in and get 25 chops right across that chest there, folks, as you see, and he can try to get his revenge. I wonder if he'll take you up on that.
Yeah, I mean, come on, Rick. This is what the fans want. This is what they want to see. You know, you talked about me a little bit on your podcast, and you're kind of crying and you're kind of whining. People don't want to see that. They want to see the old Ric Flair. Step up and get your revenge. You know you hate me. You know Wendy, she's been chasing me like that starving dog, chasing that milk bone truck with the milk bones dropping off it, salivating. She's been on her knees, her hands and knees chasing me. And you told me, Rick, when you called me, because he called me from a private number the last time I spoke to him, and he was a chilling. He says, "You stay out of Rosemary. You go to Rosemary, you see Wendy, you're a dead man." and I took it in stride, Rick. I wish you nothing but the best. You know, you've been threatening me, Rick, and I wish you nothing but the best. I want you to get your revenge, Rick. Come on, let's get in the ring.
Man, that's some classic stuff. And I got to tell you, for people that aren't one of your 5,000 friends, because I'm lucky enough to be one of them, your posts crack me up and just keep me like, I get enjoyment just watching your timeline, man. You are living life, and it shows. Now, I got two more questions before we wrap it up. One, what do you think about the whole Sunny situation? Because I know you did a video on that a while back when after it first happened, and I think she got her bail revoked the other day, right?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I did a video because years ago I had a sexual liaisons with Sunny, and I wanted to kind of clear the air on that about her and the late Chris Candido, who was a great guy, that they weren't really together at the time, and they even had some cocktails with me after that show in Danbury, Connecticut years ago, and Sunny, those luscious bazooms she had at the time, I'll tell you, she was a bigger woman at that time. She gained some weight, but still a very sexy woman. All I'll say, I don't like to get into people's personal business. I'm a believer in this, and in privacy, personal privacy. I don't think that arrests should be public. I think it should be private. Even so, and I've talked to Larry about this too. You know, I think once you've done your time as well, I don't think that employers should hold that against you, be able to go after you. That's what causes the recidivism. You know, and also in the prisons, they don't teach skills like they should, you know, they do in other countries. And now they don't even let them work out, or I think they should, you know, conjugal visits. I'm a big believer in minding your own business. I don't know what Sunny did. I just wish her the best. You know, she's a good person, but you know, if she killed somebody and she was intoxicated, she's going to have to do some time. There's no way around that.
Especially with her past DUIs and stuff like that. That's not a good recipe. Also seen Cain Velasquez got not denied for bail for his second time coming up for it. Oh, yeah. I don't know if he'll get out either before he at least goes to trial.
He shouldn't. On the Cain situation, I mean, it's a whole different ball of wax. I mean, drive-by shootings, to me, and this is what I say about Cain, and I went on Dan Severn and Don Fry's podcast when this was a clip I don't think they even aired, because I said to Don, because Don keeps defending Cain, I said, Don Fry, if I was a passenger in that car that Cain Velasquez is shooting at, you know, I'm a gun enthusiast and a very good shot and a safe gun owner. I would have reached down, I would have pulled out my 380 and I would have put Cain to bed. And I would have been completely justified in doing so, because he was recklessly shooting at another car, drive-by shooting. You know, there's so many things on that. People are innocent till proven guilty. Due process. I don't know what happened with this guy. If this guy did molest somebody in his family, you know, he should obviously be punished. But I don't know whether he did or not. A lot of those times, those cases, a lot of times it's they coach the kids. Yeah. You know, you never know what really happened, and there's no excuse for Cain endangering the lives of other people. If Cain had found this guy an isolated situation and he knew it was true, and he had made the guy disappear, well, I don't think we'd even be hearing about it.
Yeah.
but he went out on the public roadways, and he's going to have to do some serious time. I think at least 8 years, 8 to 10. I don't think he's going to get the maximum up to 20. Garagos is a good attorney, and I was talking to some of our attorneys about this case down in my office in Boca that are more on the criminal side. We have some excellent attorneys, and they said, yeah, he'll probably get 8 to 10. They say Garagos is really sharp, and he'll get it pled down, but he's going to have to do some time. For his fans, I think he's not going to do any time. They're in for a rude awakening.
Yeah. Now, that definitely going out into the open road, like you said, that could have killed innocent people that didn't have anything to do with this situation. And knowing Kane,
he didn't even shoot the guy that's suspected of molesting somebody. He shot the wrong person anyway.
And when Kane, with his physical abilities, if he'd have been able to just, like you said, track him down or follow him till he got out and got his hands on him, I'm assuming he probably could have done whatever the hell he wanted to him at that point.
Also, the circles that Kane travels in, and all the great fighters and dangerous guys around him at the level that he's at, he shouldn't have even had to do that himself. If he wanted that done, like I said, talking about Cosa Nostra, keep things quiet, he should have had somebody do that quietly. And if he wanted the guy taken care of, go take care of him. None of us would probably have ever heard about it.
Yeah. That's very true.
Yeah.
I'm going to close out with this question, man. It seems like, sports, WWE, UFC, all those guys for different times in their lifespan have that guy that's carrying a sport. You had Hulk Hogan in WWE, you had Ric Flair in WCW, then you had The Rock, Stone Cold, in MMA, you had Ronda Rousey for a little while, you had Chuck Liddell, you had Conor McGregor. To me right now, it seems like you don't have that star in the UFC that just puts the asses in the seats for the pay-per-views. Who is going to be that next guy or girl, rather, who's going to step up? Because Nunes had a lot of views, but she lost her last fight, so the mystique got kind of knocked off a little bit. Who's going to be that next Conor McGregor?
I'm going to answer that question a little differently because I worked on the business side in Bellator. I was a prime marketing consultant when they first went to Spike, and I set up the Stephan Bonner Tito Ortiz fight where we beat him head to head in the ratings. And then it was all about ratings, and it was all about pay-per-view buys.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, it's not anymore with WWE or UFC because they have these massive big money TV contracts now.
Yeah.
So they're not watching the numbers, particularly the pay-per-view numbers and the pay-per-view buys like they used to. So I don't know who that next person's going to be, but I don't think that they're as concerned at building that next person as they used to be because the model has changed.
Yeah, it could. And I heard an interesting take on this by a guest I'm about to have on the show who was involved in a major point shaving scandal. I'm not going to drop his name yet, but it's going to be a great show. It happened a while back in college basketball, and he made up a great point, which has been in the limelight here as of late with fighter pay, that you're more acceptable to having a fixed fight in the UFC because it's a single person deal. It's not a team. It's kind of hard to, get somebody to do it now on a team because you can, even if you pay a quarterback, he throws a couple of picks, they're going to pull him. He's going to be out of the game. It's hard to control that. But in a UFC fight, if some of these guys could, if their odds are high, they can get a family member or somebody completely isolated to go lay a big hunk of money down, and they lose the fight, just get caught in a triangle or something like that. Then they get the money. Then that's going to create what? The rematch. Now it's going to be an even bigger fight. You're getting the double the payday. So that's something that Dana needs to look at is if he keeps paying these fighters low, that's going to open the door for something like that to happen. And if it does, and if it's found out, that can really damage the sport.
Well, it's not like, and I'm going to stop it there, but I mean, I can rattle off over a dozen fixed fights in MMA, particularly in Pride when the Yakuza was involved.
Yeah.
And that's something that nobody, because the Yakuza is so powerful over there, nobody really talks about how many of those Pride fights were fixed. I mean, God, I'm not going to name names because some of them are really close friends of mine that have had a lot of worked MMA fights. Now, the problem with fans, they use the word UFC. UFC is just a promotion.
Right.
Pride was bigger than UFC in its heyday. One is bigger than UFC globally now. The Asian promotion, and in Asia and in Asian MMA, there are a lot of worked fights, and what the Yakuza will do is they'll obviously bet heavily when they know who's going to win. And Yakuza controlled Pride fighting championships. Pride was bigger than UFC. I mean, UFC does have the mob roots and the mob history. And yeah, there have been a number of works over the years in UFC too. And throughout MMA, there have been. And a lot of times you'll never know because it'll be the opponents working together.
Right.
The easiest thing to do. I mean, God, look in boxing, in boxing history, any combat sport.
Oh yeah.
Any combat sport. It's actually easier to fix in the grappling side on the ground than it is striking, to fool the fans.
Right.
But it's going on a lot. I mean, it just, I'm managed Phil Baroni when he was in Pride. He was a big star in Pride. I'm really good friends with Mark Coleman, who was a star in Pride. I just had Dan Severn on my podcast in studio. I mean, there have been so many. I mean, the fans will never know. They'll never have an idea. And it's like Omerta is and the kayfabe is kept in with a lot of the guys that were involved in that. One of them is dead, had the most number of fights, and God, he had a lot of fixed fights over his career. Absolutely.
Wow. Well, that's good stuff, man. Look, we got to have you back on there because I've had a good time, and you're always a entertaining guest and good conversation. So hopefully we can get you back on there at some point in the future. Yeah,
thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. And say hi to Larry for me. Are you going to have Larry back on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That was just his first episode. We're planning on doing a few more. I'm going to share him some guests, throw him some guests his way. He's going to throw some mine.
You should have on. If you want to talk about the mob history in UFC, the guest you should have on is fighter, good friend of mine, training partner, and also he's one of the original MMA journalists. You should have Bob Carson on.
Absolutely.
He'll tell you all about the history of the Fertitta family. And I mean, I can tell you, I'll go into a lot more detail on how they the stronghold that they had over us and how they used those mob tactics. When I was managing Kamal Shalarus, when he was in UFC during the Zuffa era, what they did keeping the sponsor money. And but he'll give Bob, I interviewed Bob in studio in Boca when we did an hour with my co-host Brittany Garcia on TBT podcast about that. And he's a guy you should definitely have on.
Absolutely, man. Send me his info. I'd love to have him on. We tackle all types of stuff here on Crime and Entertainment. We enjoy the mob stuff, but we're not boxed into that. We get actors, singers, wrestlers, fighters, the whole 9 yards. So, if it makes for an interesting topic, we're going to put them on the show for sure.
Yeah, I know. Last thing I'll tell you is the Fertitta family history and the mob influence in UFC is something that very few fans know.
Yeah. Now, when I've dropped tidbits like that, because I've seen some of the shows you've done in the past, some with Gunner, another friend of mine that was an excellent show. They're like, really? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, dude, it was in there. I mean, it was deep, and a lot of people don't know. The average fan don't know that. You're absolutely correct.
The reason why is Frank Lorenzo and Tillman are multimillionaires, and they did it the right way. They didn't talk, and the people around them didn't talk. And that's, you mentioned Gunner, that when I did his show, we talked about that too. This whole idea of talking, and although they're talking about things that happened in the past, if any criminal organization is done well, you won't know about it. You shouldn't know about it.
Yeah, the guys that you can't find a lot of dirt on are the ones that done it right. If you can find a lot of stuff, that usually means they got records and court cases, and they didn't get away with whatever the hell they were doing.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. I hope you have a great rest of your week.
All right. Same to you, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Hollywood Wade. That was the king of Connecticut, Matt Granahan. And unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Matt, we appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Bye-bye.